Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Warframe guide. First of all, there's an apology to be made. This guide was meant to be up like a week ago. I actually recorded it, and then I lost all the footage because I'm an idiot. So sorry for that, now we're recording it again. I do also have a cold currently, so if I seem like I'm dying of the plague, well, that's why. Trinity is the choice of the day, and in this video we're going to be covering general builds and ways to play Trinity to best support your team. Healing in Warframe is a bit weird and not always as appreciated as it should be. Because let's face it, things die pretty quickly, and most of the time when people are getting healed, they usually don't notice because they're too busy slashing the crap out of some poor Grineer soldier, and often a good Trinity in the group can make the difference between going that few extra waves in a defense or getting to capture that one last Eidolon before the end of a night cycle. With her combination of healing, damage mitigation and energy regeneration, she is very sought after for a team and should always be appreciated when you see one of them in your team. As mentioned, healing and buffing in Warframe is often something that goes unseen. With Trinity, you are a solid healer and buffer, with a lot of simplicity for new players. So if you're ever looking for a healing mode to go through, then Trinity is a very good choice. She's gone through some changes over time, she's had some gimmicks taken away, she's had some buffs made and some nerfs made. And although you will not really be dealing damage with Trinity, you will be supporting your team in a way that will really satiate that healing itch. Like if you played World of Warcraft, for example, you know how intuitive and satisfying healing in a MMO can be. Seeing those health bars dipping down, only to then be topped back up at the last moment by your magical healing fingers. As with any of these guides, we're going to be giving you the suggestions of how to play. Use your initiative, decide how you want to go about things. We're merely going to give you the suggestions of playstyle you can go for to use the way most other people would play Trinity to get the most out of her. Trinity is generally best played focusing on one element of playstyle or another, as going into a hybrid style of play can often lead to diminishing returns of potency of what you're aiming for. And seeing as some of the gimmick builds are now out of the game and there are generally two ways of playing Trinity. Although you can play the way you want, this guide will give you the idea of the potency of Trinity is how it's generated through focusing on one side or the other rather than a messy in-between hybrid build. The first suggested playstyle of Trinity is a pure healing and damage mitigation one, focusing on power, strength and duration. Prioritizing as much duration to allow your buffs to last as long as possible and to be as strong as possible. This is something you will see with both playstyles, is that power strength is a key factor to your potency, although a pure buff and heal build will need that power strength all the more. You activate your blessing, which allows nearby players to be healed and gain damage mitigation. In turn, you then also can regenerate their energy with Energy Vampire. And keeping yourself healthy using your first and third ability, this is a simple playstyle that even new players wouldn't be hard to understand, and will likely just fall into a playstyle with as you pick her up and as you start learning her. The second suggested playstyle is one that is a little bit more unique, as it goes against the normal grain and encourages this weird notation of destroying your duration, but in so doing, this has a weird effect on Trinity's second ability, which is energy regeneration buff, allowing you to cast it incredibly quickly over and over again, allowing for a near infinite amount of energy for your allies. This then combined with an augment called Vampire Leech leads to a very strong buff for your allies, as well as that constant energy, giving your allies a large overshield. Thankfully, both of these builds are pretty easy to achieve, and with Trinity, she is definitely one of the simplest buff and healer frames out there. So if you've ever wanted to try your hand at a support role in Warframe, Trinity is definitely a good frame to initially pick this up with. Obtaining Trinity is a bit of a git for new players, as it comes from the Ambulus encounter on Pluto. So not only having an awkward way of actually getting into the assassination itself is a pretty challenging one too. But with the reward of Trinity, it is most certainly worth the effort. Once you've beaten the Ambulus, the chassis and neuroptics both have a 38.72% drop chance, and the systems have a 22.56% drop chance. I would highly recommend going into this with a preordained team, or taking a Valkyr with you, as if you're still new to the game, the Ambulus can be a bit of a pain in the ass, and Valkyr is exceptionally good at taking care of these mother freaking mowers in the early stage of the game. The stats for Trinity at level 30 are the following. Her normal variant has 300 health, 300 shields, 15 armor, 225 energy, a 1.0 sprint speed, 2 Vazarin polarities in her regular mod slots, and a Vazarin polarity in her aura slot. The Prime variant has a few nice little upgrades with 300 health, so the same health, 450 shields, so an improvement of 150 shields, 15 armor, 225 energy, 1.1 sprint speed, and this is where things can be a little bit weird. She actually gains 2 additional polarities for her regular mod slots, with the regular 2 Vazarin polarities, a new Madurai polarity, and a new Naramon polarity. So I would highly recommend double checking your builds before you build Trinity Prime, as this can be a benefit but also a bit of a negative as well, as if you are trying to go for specific builds and a Naramon polarity isn't going to be your thing, then you might need to rejigger around the polarities a smidge with some Former. But even without needing to Former her, you can essentially get some decent builds even with these with only 1 Former on her. And you can then also get the regular Vazarin in her Aura polarity as well. Now we're moving on to the abilities. Trinity's passive is a bit of a basic one, but it falls quite nicely in line with her playstyle. Her passive is called Triage. Triage allows you to revive allies at a 20% faster rate. So if we just show an example here, if we unpause these level 160 troopers and allow our friends here to die horribly, and then pause them again, you can very easily see that through the act of Trinity's healerooniness, she's able to revive her teammates at a much faster rate, meaning you're not going to be stood around doing nothing for a shorter period of time. So, really endeavouring towards that healer motif that she has. Trinity's one is called Well of Life. Trinity marks a target within 100 meters. The target will get lifted into the air for 12 seconds. Its health is then completely restored and multiplied by 10. When Trinity or allies deal damage to it, they are healed for 45% of the damage dealt. This ability expires if 400 health is regenerated overall to that player, or to the ally. The life steal and maximum health are affected by ability strength, so the more ability strength you deal, or the more ability strength you build for, the more potency you will gain from this in terms of healing. The duration of the lift up is affected by ability duration, and the cast range is affected by ability range. This is a very solid crowd control, and using this against slightly larger enemies like Bombards, Noxus for example, will give you much more potency in terms of healing given to you. So using this to take out enemies that would otherwise be very large and obnoxious is a very advisable thing to do. The augment for Well of Life is called Pool of Life. On death, when an enemy is affected by Well of Life, on death they will drop 4 additional health orbs, with a 25% chance of dropping an energy orb. The energy orb drop chance is affected by power strength, so if you build with some additional power strength, you will guarantee an energy orb almost every single kill. This is a great utility augment that adds to the supportive role, so if you feel like being a Santa and giving lovely little gifts to all the lovely little Tenno boys and squirrels, you can be that Santa you've always wanted to be. Trinity's 2, and one of her main abilities that dictate your playstyle, is called Energy Vampire. Trinity will mark a target within 100 meters and emit 4 pulses over 9 seconds. Each pulse restores 25 energy to the Tenno within 25 meters. The target is then staggered and dealt 6.25% of its remaining health as true damage, bypassing the target's shields. The damage this deals is a percentage base of the health remaining. This is immensely powerful against big chunky enemies, as it will then completely ignore any mitigation they have, the immunities they have, to deal a huge amount of damage, as well as also then regenerating energy to your allies. The pulses are emanated every quarter of the overall duration. So if you build for minus duration, the pulses are emanated much quicker with the less duration you have. So this is something you use for an energy leech build, which we'll cover later. Using this on a weak enemy, or an enemy that is low on health, and causing that enemy to die will cause all of the remaining pulses when the enemy dies are then released at once, giving you a large, chunky, instant amount of energy should you wish to allow it to all spurt off instantly rather than over a longer period of time. Energy restored to your allies and the damage percentage are affected by ability strength. The pulse duration is affected by ability duration in the way that we mentioned a moment ago. The cast range and pulse radius are affected by ability range. The augment for Energy Vampire is called Energy Leech. In short, excess energy generated by your Energy Vampire will convert into overshields. So this is the big augment, one of the piece de la resistances of Trinity's playstyle, and is a core to what we were talking about at the start of the video in terms of playstyle. If you notice our allies' health plates, they are going into purple shielding as they regenerate all their energy. So the way this works is once an ally or yourself reaches max energy, the excess energy generated by additional energy vampires is converted into that overshields. It can go up to 150% of your initial shield rating, so the more shields you have, the more of a benefit you get from it. This augment allows for a lovely buff, and with a minus duration build using the corrupted mods, allows for a consistent and very efficient application of those lovely purple overshields. If you use this, it is highly advisable to go for a pure energy vampire build rather than going blessing. Mixed in, again, it can be done, but hybrid builds get a bit messy and they don't often work well when used at the same time. Although again, this all comes down to personal preference, so if you feel like doing that, you can. Just, again, see the potency of going for one or the other. Trinity's 3 is called Link. Trinity links with the closest enemy over a duration of 12 seconds, reducing incoming damage by 75% while channeling the damage back at the attackers. Trinity transfers 100% of the incoming damage and status effect to a maximum of 3 enemies within 20 meters. The damage reduction and the number of enemies affected are not affected by ability strength, neither is the transfer damage to other enemies. So it is based purely on what you are taking and the type of damage you are being dealt. This is great for survivability. Use this as much as you can if you're using a blessing build. Unfortunately, if you're going for an EV build, it is highly likely you will not have the duration necessary to make this last long enough to make use of it properly. The damage reduction and the number of enemies affected are not affected by ability strength as mentioned, so this is something that is just going to be used as and when you are taking damage. The augment for Link is called Abating Link. Have you ever thought that Trinity just isn't supportive enough? Well, now she gets even more supportive. Abating Link will reduce the armor of enemies affected by 45%. If you can reach a butter zone of 223% ability strength, her Link will completely remove all the armor of the enemy affected. However, the armor reduction only lasts for as long as the ability is active. So if you completely run out of, the ability wears off, then they gain their armor back again. So you'll want to keep an eye on this where you can. Trinity's 4, and one of your main playstyle abilities is called Blessing. Now, we're going to show this through the active combat of our team here. So, Blessing is a very simple ability. It is a direct heal to your team and damage mitigation. Trinity will restore 80% of her allies' shields and health within shared affinity range. Affinity range is not like typical range, however. It is used through your focus tree, and you cannot really expand it, so building range will not help this. The default radius of this is 50 meters. So any ally within 50 meters will have 80% of their health and shields restored, with then a generated buff of 50% damage mitigation. The potency of the heal towards shields and mitigation is based on power strength. At 150% power strength, you get the maximum possible mitigation buff of 75%. Going above that will only then benefit the overall heal. Going above 150% power strength is not entirely needed, but will help your other abilities if nothing else. And finally, for the builds, we're going to be taking a look at only the builds that are relevant for the playstyles. So this first build we're looking at is the Energy Vampire build, or the Vampire Leech, or the EV build, depending how you want to phrase it. Now, all of these builds are going to be showing off the potency of the lack of former you need, because with Trinity Prime, as we mentioned beforehand, you come with initially 4 polarities that work quite well with almost any build. So with this, we're looking at the polarity, the aura slot. The aura slot can basically be whatever you so choose. I personally like rejuvenation, as it sort of fits the motif of the healing method you're using with Trinity. And then everything after this is down to the emphasis on your 2. Now, to make use of Vampire Leech, you want minus duration. Currently, the only mod in the game that can help you with this for the most part is Transient Fortitude. Ability strength, but minus duration. This then allows you to spam your 2 much faster and causes the pulses to emanate quicker as well. After that, you want range to help the radius of the pulses go further, and having some power strength on there is quite nice as well with things like Intensify. Blind Rage could be a choice here, but having that minus efficiency isn't that advisable, especially seeing as you're going to be cast heavy most of the time with this. Having Cunning Drift is there for the range, along with Overextended. And the thing is, even with this build, Blind Rage kind of works quite nicely as well, specifically because you're going to be constantly regenerating energy, so having that minus efficiency for some bonus power strength, it can be okay. It's a personal preference. If you were to put Blind Rage on there, you would put it in place of possibly Augur Strength, maybe even Stretch, as Stretch with a build like this isn't necessarily necessary. It's down to your personal preference. Everything with this can sort of be jiggered around to the way you feel would work well. This is just the way I have found works well for me. Then moving on to the blessing build. This goes completely down the opposite end of things with bonus duration as a priority. You're wanting to reach that butter zone of 150% power strength to make sure you get the maximum mitigation from blessing as possible, and then you have as much duration as feasibly manageable to make the buff last as long as possible. Going above the 150% power strength, it's not needed, but you do get potency towards your other abilities should you wish. With this current build, you get a 72.5% damage mitigation buff, which is more than enough for most situations. You can sort of jimmy jam things around to how you feel would work for you. Just let me know that duration is the quintessential important part of this build. And that's the Trinity guide. This probably isn't as good as the first recording I did of this, because I lost all the footage and it took me a month to get back to this, so, you know, it's not going to be as good as I was hoping it would be, but at the very least I hope you got the relevant information out of this, and maybe your days of playing Trinity will be more enjoyable now because of it. If you seem to be interested in joining us, we do record these on our Twitch stream. There will be a link to our Twitch stream in the description of the video down below. If you have comments or you want to see specific guides in the future, then do consider leaving a comment in the comment section as well to let me know what you think of these guides. We'll be soon delving out into more varied types of guides with things like Eidolon Part 2, we're going to be looking at focus trees, all that kind of good stuff. And if you want to be part of these, like our fellow Tenno here, then you are welcome to join us should you wish, because you guys help dictate how these guides end up going. So if you all enjoyed yourself, and I'll see all of you top hatters in the next video. Ta-ra!